I think we're constantly keeping an eye on what is required in the international financial services arena, and we're making sure that those changes come into effect. I think I mentioned earlier, we were in both Italy and France later part of last year, to signing on to BEPS and the Multilateral Convention with regard to CRS and other issues. We're very fortunate we have in the Bahamas as one of our agencies that works very closely with the Bahamas Financial Services Board, which has a great board of directors, a great CEO, and we work very closely with them in not only in developing the industry, but also promotional trips, which ones we want to go on to target. You know, everyone has limited budgets, so we target where we want to go, the brand we want to go after, the type of clientele we want to go after. And so the BFSB and the government have worked very well together, and we have a great working relationship so that we can together promote the industry, because there are things that the Bahamas Financial Services Board can do that a government can't do, and there's a role for government which is separate from the Financial Services Board. And so the two of them complement each other very well, and we're going to look forward to a bright future working together to developing the Bahamas as a clear choice. We're working along with the BFSB and also industry partners to make sure, as we move towards the CRS and the reporting requirements in September of this year, that we're all in line with making sure that everyone is reporting on the same wavelength, same grounds, that the computer systems are in place, and all of this is an attempt to make sure we're ahead of the game and remain completely compliant with OECD standards. That's an interesting question. Everyone has different reasons. I met recently with an offshore banker who decided, he looked around the world as to different places. He was living, I think, in Switzerland at that point, and he decided on the basis of weighing each jurisdiction up, he wanted to be in the Bahamas. He considered the school system, the proximity to the United States, the weather, obviously, the fact that we are a very highly developed financial services center, good staff, highly trained staff, and also just his proximity to, not necessarily proximity to Switzerland, but his ease of getting to Switzerland and Europe in those cases, while still maintaining a lifestyle that he wanted to bring his children up in and his wife to live in. The other day I happened to be out to dinner, and I met a gentleman from England. He moved here. He considered the Bahamas was the place for him to again raise his children, his wife to live, and the concerns of Brexit. So I think we'll see in the next couple of months, as Prime Minister moves towards the negotiations with Brexit, and where obviously there might be some hard lines between the European Union and the United Kingdom, that persons will not want to go through that uncertainty and rather come to the Bahamas for its transparency, its longevity, and issues like that. Many of you don't realize that obviously the Bahamas is a Westminster-based system of government. We have a very mature legal system. The Privy Council in Great Britain is our highest court of appeal, so therefore that gives persons comfort that we're not relying on some jurisdictions where the final court of appeal is restricted to that jurisdiction. And we have also a very long parliament. Our parliament was first elected in 1729, and we've had a consistent parliament since then. No coups, no bloody takeovers, no, it has been a peaceful transition from one parliamentary group to another parliamentary group on a regular basis, and we've maintained a very strong parliamentary and judicial system for centuries. We have quite a good market of offshore banking wealth management. The government has just recently passed a commercial enterprise bill, which has a certain number of categories in the schedule. One is, for instance, arbitration. We're going to introduce an arbitration act, which we hope will mean arbitration will come to this side of the world. Areas like a maritime industry, we have a very strong maritime registry, it's recognized throughout the world. We want to also go into areas like computer specialties and so forth, so we can attract new businesses to the Bahamas. I think the general view here is that we will look forward to developing that industry and working along with our partners, because one of the great things we do here is we work closely with our partners. The banks, financial institutions, the government are always in constant dialogue with the industry as ways of improving it and making it move forward in regulatory and also other sectors. So we'll look forward to that. Obviously, there's going to be some challenge with regard to the technology involved, with regard to the government having to increase its platform for computerization and technological advances. And the government's working on that too, to make sure we can move in that area. There's been some discussion in the marketplace about land registry, which is not necessarily relevant to a lot of people, but we have to do some work in regard to registered title for land, which is a concern in some islands, but not necessarily for those persons wanting to move here, because they're going to be living in subdivisions or areas that the title is fairly well established. So it's a bright future. I think it's really going through the CRS application to make sure we are compliant. That'll be a large part of this year. And then the latter part of the fiscal year will be the positioning of the Bahamas and promoting the Bahamas in light of the new incentives and legislation we've done, so that the world knows that the Bahamas is the clear jurisdiction to do business. I think at one point we had 495 banks here. That number has decreased, but they are real banks. Whilst the number has decreased, the number of employment and the actual contribution to the economy has increased. That we do have an infrastructure here, a well-developed infrastructure, modern capability through telephone and email and so on and so forth. On the end of the island, the western end of the island, you're seeing a very large development of well, not large, but a number of buildings that are great for headquartering. I know a number of persons who've moved their headquarters here. We have quite a lot of office complexes where we can house businesses, so we're well developed in that area. We have a very highly developed bar here. The Bar Association, I think we have some over 1,200, 1,500 lawyers here who interact with international firms around the world. Many of whom, for instance, the senior businesses here will have partnerships in Cayman, BVI, and associates in London and other jurisdictions, Singapore. So that that knowledge and partnerships and relationships, if I can put them that way, are well established in the financial services industry. In the same area with the accounting area, we have all of the big accounting firms here. And our immigration rules are such that partners from Miami office or Singapore office can come into the accounting firms to make sure they carry on either audits or investigations or whatever is required by the client. And the same with wealth managers. So the move of persons coming in for terms of immigration is very seamless.